Navigating Mexican Culture and Business Interactions. In recent years, Mexico has dominated the headlines and been the subject of numerous documentaries in regards to one major issue: the drug cartels. Now, with Donald Trump's rhetoric around immigration and closing borders, why would any business want to extend its resources and future into this country? The answer is this. As an active member of NAFTA, the 11th largest economy in the world, with a rapidly growing middle class, and high-quality industrial manufacturing, Mexico holds enticements for many businesses. While American business people may feel like Mexican culture is easier to navigate than more distant countries, there are certain pitfalls to avoid in order to ensure a smooth business relationship. This briefing will go over cultural issues related to gift giving, phone etiquette, greetings, boardroom manners, and the Mexican business calendar. It will focus in varying levels of detail on each issue. We'll begin by watching a short example of how ignorance toward Mexico's business culture can cause problems from the start.
Carlos.
Well, good afternoon, Senora Jones. How are you today?
Fine. Listen, we may run into some problems and need to reschedule. So those next round of permits, I'll need you to get those immediately.
Immediately? Well, as Senora knows, they won't be ready for 3 weeks.
Carlos, we might have to stop work if we don't get those right away.
I don't know what she's thinking, but you cannot jump in line here. Well, that would be very difficult, very difficult.
Difficult? Why is it so difficult? I understand. How much will it cost?
How much?
Yes, how much will it cost? What sort of a payment do we need to make to get the documents here now?
Oh, Senora.
Oh, come on, Carlos. I've worked in Latin America before. Carlos, I need you to find out how much, and I need you to take care of this.
I am sure that Senora Jones has seen much corruption, but she must view every culture, every person individually. As my people say, each head is a world of its own. We are very proud of the fact that we have little corruption. It is very insulting to assume that we are like another country just because we both speak Spanish. Would Senora say that England is like Texas just because they both speak English? Finally, I understand that Senora prefers words over gestures, and I would be happy to try to work with her. But for us, much of what is said lies in what is unsaid. The tone of voice, silence, the face, the eyes, the body. It is through our body language that we show our strength and our weakness.
To help understand typical business interactions, we'll follow Robert, a hypothetical businessman from Detroit. He is an executive at the car manufacturer General Engines and is in charge of the logistics surrounding their latest move to invest $1.6 billion in building a new manufacturing plant in Mexico. Robert has done his research and has chosen to build the plant in Arapido. It is far enough inland to avoid complications with the Mexican drug cartels that tend to mainly concentrate in U.S.-Mexico border and seaside towns. Robert has obtained the name and contact information for Raul Barksdale, an industrial developer and general manager for a construction services company in central Mexico. He calls Raul's office on a Tuesday morning to begin the process. His phone call is answered by a secretary in Raul's office, and she takes down a message. Robert does not expect that his call will be returned, and will try calling a few more times before taking the next step. Robert is familiar with Mexican phone etiquette and knows that Mexican businessmen typically do not return phone messages, but believe the caller will call back if it is important enough. When Robert finally reaches Raul on Friday, he knows that initial rapport is very important and doesn't want his requests to get lost in translation. He speaks a little Spanish, but has an interpreter nearby to assist. He knows that Mexican businessmen appreciate an effort for all involved to speak Spanish. However, like many in Mexico, Raul speaks mostly in English, with Spanish sprinkled in now and then. The result of the phone call is a subsequent meeting at Raul's office in Mexico City, scheduled for 3 weeks. Robert knows he must follow up a few days before the meeting to confirm, as meetings are often fairly tentative in Mexican society, despite precise dates being agreed upon. Knowing this in advance, he obtained Raul's cell phone number. It is okay and wise to obtain personal cell phone numbers for business contacts. In the week leading up to his Mexico trip, Robert buys a bottle of moderately priced wine and rounds up company-logoed hats to send to Raul's family. Giving gifts to the families of the business connections is appreciated. This is the first of a series of steps Robert must take to begin to establish a personal relationship with Raul. Business relationships are personal to Mexicans. When Robert wakes up on the day he is to meet Raul, he makes sure to wear a dark, conservative, and nicely pressed suit along with shiny shoes. Social class is important to the culture, and formal wear is part of class distinction. Robert was sure to bring a stack of business cards and knows the proper etiquette around this practice. When someone hands him a business card, he will examine it and put it on the table in front of him for the duration of the meeting. He will respond with his card. Before the meeting gets to this point, Robert will have to greet Raul and his business associates. Because this is their first meeting, a firm handshake is appropriate for all men he meets. When he is greeted by Raul's female assistant, he will wait for her to extend her hand for a handshake. A kiss on the cheek will be the way in which Robert will greet the assistant in subsequent meetings moving forward. A handshake and a pat on the back is how he will greet Raul and his business associates in the future. Robert shows up to Raul's office 5 minutes after the scheduled meeting time. Waiting another 20 minutes for all to arrive isn't uncommon, and Robert is aware that showing up late to meetings is acceptable and expected in Mexico. After the introductions and business card exchange, everyone takes a seat. Once Robert is sitting at the table with Raul and other interested parties, the conversation turns to sports, family, and the state of the Mexican nation. For almost an hour, they speak in a very informal way about these daily topics, and Robert isn't sure if they'll ever get to the business at hand. Finally, in the last 20 minutes of the meeting, they discuss General Engine's budget and needs in Mexico. During the meeting, Robert was very conscientious to address everyone formally as Don, which is the Spanish title for Sir. He attached their last name when he could recall. He knew not to call them by their first names as it is considered quite rude. During the meeting, one of Raul's business partners referred to Robert as the gringo with the money. At first, Robert found this quite offensive. However, he remembered that based on the tone of the use of this word, it can either be meant offensively or endearing. The tone indicated the latter in this case. Upon departing, Raul invited Robert to dinner with his family. His family is very important to the Mexican culture. Robert was not surprised at this request. He had read that bringing a small gift to dinner was important, much like it is in the U.S. He decided to bring flowers, but wasn't sure what kind to bring. Through a little research, Robert discovered what colors to avoid. In Mexican culture, yellow symbolizes death, red bad luck, and purple funerals. He decided on white flowers, as they are considered uplifting. The next day, Robert meets with Raul once again. Having formed more of a personal relationship with Robert the night before, he is now more comfortable talking about business. Robert is very direct during the meeting. Raul is not. Raul's eye contact during their exchange is brief and indirect. Direct eye contact is considered rude. When Robert starts suggesting concessions he would like from Raul, Raul often returns with phrases such as, "I'll get back to you on that," and "maybe." Robert knows how Mexican culture instills avoidance of direct conflict and takes these answers as firm no's. Robert leaves Mexico on the next day. He has begun to establish a relationship with Raul and will have much more interaction moving forward. Mexican businessmen like to do business face-to-face as opposed to over the phone or email, so Robert will surely be back soon. 2 weeks after his visit to Mexico, Robert calls Raul to check on the progress of land procurement, which he had discussed during their final meeting in Mexico. Robert knows that Mexican workers take lunch from 2 to 4 p.m., and so he tries to make his business calls to Raul in the morning hours. He finds Raul to be somewhat vague as to the delivery dates, even when their conversations are forthright. He will often be given answers like, "sometime next week," or "I'll take care of it," without any further explanation as to how. This time, Raul leads with the statement that he will have to reconnect with Robert 1 week from Monday, as this upcoming week is Semana Santa. Robert is frustrated at the inconvenience, but understands the Mexican work calendar. The following dates are work holidays in Mexico: Semana Santa, the week before Easter; the Day of the Dead, November 2nd; Mother's Day, May 10th; All Kings' Day, January 6th; and Our Lady of Guadalupe, December 12th. Business slows down substantially from December 12th to January 6th. The Mexican people refer to this as Puente Guadalupe Reyes, or a time-off period from Our Lady of Guadalupe to All Kings' Day. Robert does trust Raul, and knows many of the miscommunications between the two are cultural in nature. Robert tries to keep an open mind when dealing with Raul, and most likely Raul is doing the same with Robert. A mutual understanding and respect for one another and the way in which they do business is of utmost importance to both, and without it, many deals will be left on the table and opportunities will be lost.